Well, let's start a call to order, establish a quorum and introductions.
All right.
I'm John DeVoe from Woodland Park, so whoever, Ann, you're next up on the screen.
Oh, you're still here.
Hi.
Name of everybody that we see. And then
Sounds good.
Once we start, we'll go ahead and do a roll call. I'll go down the list of everybody, and then that gives us a better idea of who we have on the line. Hope that's okay with you.
And it looks like we do have Aubrey here.
Yep.
Hi, everybody.
Aubrey.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start the roll call, Jessica.
Okay, so call to order at 2:59. So I'm going to go down the list. I have Aubrey, Kim, Oren, Tamra, Gordon, Sharon, John.
recorded in the minutes properly. Mute yourself if you're not talking. That way we don't get background noise or anything.
Ed, Ann, PPACG staff and guests. Let's see, Roy.
Rick?
Okay, are there any CAC members that I did not call yet that are on the line?
I didn't hear my name, Rick Hoover.
Rick, okay, gotcha.
Move the second action item for transportation, Catherine's item, to go before the strategic plan item.
Excuse me, I didn't hear my name called.
Got you, Rick. Who do we have in the background with some
Thank you.
noise going on here?
Sounds like someone's playing last month's meeting in the background.
Yeah, wrong meeting. Who do we have on the line at 719-963-247?
This is Donna Wood.
Hi, Donna. Donna Wood.
I'm from NEPCO.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there any other CAC members that I didn't catch that have jumped on the line in the last minute or so?
Carol's here, Campbell.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Remind me, oh, never mind, you are a citizen at large. There you are. Okay. Just remember that if you are not speaking or presenting, to mute yourself so that way we don't get that background noise. It's a little bit distracting. Make sure to say your name when making a motion. And other than that, I will turn it over to Aubrey to go through the agenda.
Great, thank you. Nice to see everybody. Let's go ahead and talk about the consent items, unless anybody would like to pull anything. Hearing no issues with it, I would accept a motion to pass the consent items.
So moved, Ed Dills.
Thanks, Ed. Anybody want a second?
Second, Carol Campbell.
Thank you, Carol. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Okay, Jessica, did you receive any public comments via email?
I did not.
Okay. And there are no guests on the line, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, good. Then we can can skip public comment. All right. So our first item is an information item. Brian Vituli, Travel Demand Management Program.
Good
Welcome,
afternoon,
Brian.
everyone. Thank you, Aubrey, for having us, and Jessica for reaching out to enable us to do this presentation. My name is Brian Vituli. I'm the planning supervisor with Mountain Metropolitan Transit, which is it's a division of the city's Public Works Department, the Transit Services Division. I'm going to briefly give a very quick overview of what a travel demand management program is, and then turn it over to my colleagues who can go into depth. And we probably have about 11 or 12 slides to share with you and let you know what consists of what our Metro Rides program is. We've been lucky, being a partner with PPACG. We've been a recipient of funding that's allowed us to develop a really good travel demand management program that we've been having for many years. It used to have another name. It used to be called Ride Finders. Now it's called Metro Rides. But primarily it's come from funding, federal funding through the state and through PPACG as part of the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program. It's CMAQ. And it is designed to reduce emissions, improve air quality, reduce congestion on the roadways, primarily to limit, travel during peak times, or to give commuters alternatives to traveling during peak times, because that's when the infrastructure system is the most under stress, during those peak hours in the morning and the afternoon. And so that's what our Metro Rides programs kind of really get into. And fortunately, since our region has improved in air quality, well, fortunately or unfortunately, we're not a recipient of the CMAQ money anymore. Since air quality conditions have improved, carbon monoxide levels are below those thresholds, we're actually not eligible to receive the CMAQ money anymore. But we still do have funding available to keep these programs operating, and we'll get into that now. I think I'll share my screen and let my colleagues take over. With me today are Vicki McCann. Vicki is our public relations and marketing supervisor. Sydney Kozel is our public communications specialist. And Joanne Green is our Vanpool coordinator. And they're the ones who primarily work on that from the public PR side, marketing side, or from the actual operations of the program. So let me share my screen. Can you all see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and Vicki, feel free to take it away.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. I don't have a camera on my old computer, but I see a few people I haven't seen in a really long time. I'm very excited to see them. Hi, Carol. Hi, Aubrey. It's nice to see you all. So thank you for your interest in our Metro Rides program. We like it a lot. But before I dive into that, Mountain Metro is, as Brian mentioned, the city's transit division. So we have the city's fixed route bus service that provides, when we're not in the middle of COVID, provides more than 3 million passenger trips per year, and also the complimentary ADA paratransit service that goes along with that. But what we're here to dive into a little more detail on is the Metro Rides program. So we could move to the next slide, Brian. So our Metro Rides program focuses on rideshare for the Pikes Peak region. And there's a few options that we have, including vanpool, carpool, school pool, biking programs, and then park and ride. Next slide, Brian. So for vanpool, and as Brian mentioned, Joanne Green is our guru on that one. If you have any questions about details at the end of this presentation, or even during it, Joanne is a great person for that. But this is a vanpool program. We have 41 vans in the fleet. We had 20 routes before COVID, and we currently have 6 routes running. This is kind of a moving target. It can change on a weekly basis. So the last input I got was 6 routes. Some of the destinations are the Denver VA facility, Aurora Buckley Air Force Base, downtown Denver. We've got some vans going to the Pueblo Chemical Depot, Greenwood Village, Denver Federal Center. So we've got routes in a lot of different areas. And it's a really nice program because it's just a low monthly fare. And for that, you get a minivan that seats up to 6 or full-size van that seats up to 10. And it includes, your fee includes all fuel, maintenance, and insurance. So it's a very popular program. It helps a lot of people out. I mean, we've had people who've been in the program for many years, and they get to be very good friends with the people they ride with. And they're just kind of like their own little community. So it's been pretty successful for us. Next slide, please. Now, this is some data Joanne provided to me. Thank you, Joanne, regarding participation. You'll note that the top chart is 2019 and the second one is 2020. And it's listing a number of participants and then the number of vans. And you can see that we have just really suffered with COVID. This time last year, 2019, we had 150 participants and 25 vans. We're now down to 35 and only six vehicles running. And then the chart underneath that is just a graphical representation of that participation. Now, I will say that we are anticipating that when COVID is more under control, we expect to get right back up where we were. And in fact, we're going to push hard when the GAP project is completed and that managed lane is ready to go. We think that may entice more people, and we may be able to fill more vans with that in mind. So we'll be hitting that hard probably toward the end of next year. Next slide. So then we have our carpool program, and it's offered through an online ride matching database. When people sign up, they enter their information, and they get a list of other people who are also looking for carpool options. It's completely free. It's fast and easy, and we be sure and tell people that their information is kept confidential. I have a slide at the end of this presentation where I'm going to show you the web page where you can get to this ride matching program. We call it Ride Pro, and you could go in there and check it out. It's pretty nice. Okay, next slide. School pool. So it's also offered through an online database. It's also Ride Pro. It's just a different module. And you go in and put your information in, and then you get your results right away. And then as a parent or guardian or whatever, you can look at that data and decide if you want to call or email people who might be a good match for you. And we've had some pretty good success with this as well. Next slide, please. Biking programs. So we offer a bike and bus. So passengers can use their bike for first mile, last mile, for instance. And every city bus has a bike rack on it that holds 2 to 3 bikes. It's been very popular. In 2017, we loaded 72,000 bikes for that year. In 2018, we're up to 80,000 bikes. And in 2019, we're 80,559 bikes loaded. So we keep track of how many bikes are loaded on the buses. So we use that data for a number of things to see if perhaps we need some more bike parking facilities. Are people utilizing the racks and things like that? So that's been pretty successful. We also have bike lockers. And the photo on this slide in that lower right-hand corner is a shot of one of the bike lockers. That's an ad that we have on it. And so you can store your bike and your gear for $30 for 6 months. Joanne manages that program. And lockers, bike lockers are located at Tejon and Woodman Park and Rides and at the city parking garage. We also have bike valet service, so we offer bike racks for people to use at their events at no cost. This is an extremely popular program during the summer months. We're pretty booked every single weekend. So people just need to fill out a very short application online from our website. If it's a city-sponsored event, and the racks are available, they're good to go. If it's not a city-sponsored event, they leave us a $50 deposit until the racks are returned. They pick the racks up, they set them up and manage their valet, which is what is happening in that photo on the upper right-hand side. Very popular. They unfortunately didn't get much use this year, which is too bad, but people really like the bike valet. Next slide, please. And our parking rides. So, you know, they offer parking locations for people who then want to either carpool or jump on a bus or Mustang or whatever. And those are located, the Tejon parking ride is on the southeast corner off I-25 at exit 140, and this is a photo of that one. We also have the Woodman parking ride at Corporate Drive in Mount Dabbling and a Black Forest parking ride at Black Forest Road and Woodman Road. And they get a lot of use also. Next slide. So this is the slide I was telling you about. This is where you can get to our Ride Pro online matching service. So you just go to mmtransit.com and click on Metro Rides, which you can see listed there on the left. And excuse me, and then choose carpool, school pool, van pool, whatever you're interested in. And that'll give you a brief description of the program and then a link to get into the online service. It's really easy to use. Next slide. Oh, questions? Questions, anybody?
Thank you, Vicki. Nice to see you virtually too.
Yes. Hi. Well, if you think of any questions that didn't get answered, just send Brian or I an email, and we'll be happy to get back to you on it. But we like our Metro rides. It's cool stuff. We need COVID to go away.
In more ways than one, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you all again.
Okay, it looks like Brian Potts, you're up next for the Jlus update.
All right. Good to be here virtually. A lot has changed since, of course, the last time I was here last year. So wanted to come back and give you, as requested, an update on what's been going on with the Joint Land Use Study Program. And to give a little background first, this program started, prior to this, it was the Military Impact Program that was done, and that was before my time. That was including the Fort Carson Growth Management Plan, which was completed back in, I believe, 2012, 2013. And then we got a grant in fall of 2015 from the Office of Economic Adjustment within the Department of Defense to conduct what's called a joint land use study. And this is where you go through and look at examine how operations at the military installations relate to land uses that are outside of the installations. And so it's a chance to look at opportunities for the communities and the military to partner together to make sure you can have compatible land uses. So things that work well for the communities and work well for the installations in order to sustain their military missions and just sort out issues as they come up. So that study was completed in 2018, and that report was put out, and it's on the PPHG website. Since then, in March of 2019, we got another grant from the Office of Economic Adjustment that allowed for the process that we're in right now, which is implementation. And implementation is taking those 107 recommended actions that came out of the study and attempting to implement a portion of those and monitor how stakeholders within the community are working together to execute some of these items within the plan. So I'm here to tell you about some of the activities that we've been doing. So with that, we did, first of all, our grant was originally approved to run through the fall of this year, but due to an automatic extension due to COVID-19 and the grant funds that were left within this grant, we are extended under this current grant through February 28th of 2021. And with that, we have Jlus staff, which includes myself, Brian Potts, as the program manager, and Ann Werner, who is our Jlus planner. We provide support to the Jlus Implementation Committee, which is made up of all of the community representatives as the community select them within the boundaries of El Paso County and Teller County, but also includes some representatives from Pueblo County and Fremont County, simply because Fort Carson and some of the operations that relate to the military bases include those counties. And so they have representatives that are on that committee as well. So that committee has been meeting quarterly, and we just had our last meeting last Thursday on October 22nd. And so the update that I'm giving today includes some of those items, many of those items that the committee went over and considered during this most recent meeting. So to go task by task, there were 8 grant tasks. The first one was actually, let me back up. Another item that relates to just general partnerships and facilitating partnerships between the community and the military. The Defense Mission Task Force, who the chairman is Keith Klain. They had approached PPHG and approached Andrew Gunning and myself about partnering to work on figuring out a way to address some safety and capacity issues at the intersection or the interchange of US 24 and Peterson Boulevard, right before it goes into the north gate of Peterson. And so we've been facilitating meetings and just helping provide support for those as well. And so on September 18th, we helped organize a meeting to look at how we could go about doing design planning. And we had members of the city of Colorado Springs Transportation, El Paso County Transportation, CDOT, and some other stakeholders to kind of discuss how we might go about doing that. So early stages there, but that's one item I wanted to make note of separate to what I'm about to go into. So grant task number 1 was creating the Jlus Implementation Committee. And so they have been able to meet without disruption, even during the pandemic, as like this committee right here. We have switched over to Zoom meetings, and that has worked fairly well. And our military participants have been able to continue participating in that as well. So that task has been ongoing. Grant task number 2 was working on some military information brochures. And the gist behind this item was that through our process in engaging with the public, and we did have some public engagement processes with creation of the study in 2017 and 2018, what we kept hearing coming up from the public was a curiosity or interest in what does the military do in terms of training operations, particularly with flight, and why do they do it? So we've been working with our committee and with the installations on trying to put together some flyers that now, because of COVID, will be posted online rather than in person, but some PDFs, some electronic documents that cover regional airspace use. So generally what types of things fly over our region. The high altitude mountain environment training program at Fort Carson, this is where helicopters from Fort Carson fly out and do flight training into the mountain environments, practice getting close to landing, but don't quite land typically on Bureau of Land Management land and U.S. Forest Service land. And so we tried to create these documents. And also, also hobby drone use, which has been a big topic over the last few years. So we tried to take some resources out there and create a series of 3 2-page military information brochures. And those are still under review and being commented upon, but we're almost finished with those. Grant task number 3 is looking at energy resources, particularly things that might interfere with flight. So looking at where there might be wind energy potentials, the potential for wind farms or solar farms. And so we're working with our GIS staff to take where those things might occur, existing wind farms, and overlay that with known military routes and known airspace uses with military training operating areas. So task number 4 is called the Peterson Air Force Base Sub-Area Plan. The idea behind this originally was to study land use around the Colorado Springs Airport, which, as many of you are fully aware, is a joint use airport with Peterson Air Force Base. And what ended up happening, conveniently, is that the Colorado Springs Airport decided to engage in a process of updating their airport master plan. And in fact, as we speak, the Airport Advisory Commission is actually meeting to talk about one of the components of that, which is a land use compatibility plan, which basically encapsulated that analysis we expected to do. So they have Javiation is their consultant to work on that plan. So we've been following on that process and where possible, helping to make sure that the military partners are able to engage in the civilian process if there's a need for it. The outcome of that is that we're going to do a summary document to try and encapsulate what progress has been made thus far with that airport land use plan, and items with the US 24 interchange thus far, and any other items of note, and put that into a report to kind of give a summary of where things are at with some encroachment issues around Peterson Air Force Base. Task number 5, the Air Force Academy Sub-Area Plan, similar concept. This has been mostly focused on topics that the Air Force Academy had expressed that were something that needed additional discussion with community stakeholders. And these were transportation, stormwater, and oh gosh, no, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the third one. Oh, the land use code update that City of Colorado Springs is currently doing, and looking at creating an airport overlay district to provide some level of protection for the Air Force Academy airfield. So that will also be a similar document of just encapsulating what the Air Force Academy Sub-Area Working Group has been working on. And that working group answers to the Joint Land Use Study Implementation Committee. So we'll be developing a report on that. And these will be short reports, both for Task 4 and Task 5, only about 20 pages. So basically briefs on where things are at and mostly collecting information. Grant task number 6 is entitled Real Estate Disclosure Language. Now, the idea behind this is not that we're actually going to go to the Department of Regulatory Affairs and create a new real estate disclosure that's required by law. That's not the intent of this. The idea was that in engaging with various real estate and development professionals and buyers and renters of property during the previous process, we learned that sometimes the language that was being used to describe what happens with military training operations or airspace use was one realtor might use one type of language or one documentation, another might use another. So we've been engaging with a variety of different stakeholders, including the Pikes Peak Realtors, Housing and Building Association, the airfields, the Airport Advisory Committee, to try and figure out what might be some good language that might be used in other states, create what is basically a sample real estate disclosure. And then that's available, and it's something that's been vetted by a lot of people and can be used as a resource by anyone who needs it, whether they're renting property or selling it. So that's the intent behind that. The last 2 grant test items that are not shown here are more kind of maintenance items, and those are trying to identify if there's other funding mechanisms that might help with open space or buffering of land for military operations. And that was just kind of a sort of an administrative task to do some research. And then task 8 was also just continuing to provide support in various community planning processes, such as Retool COS, which, as I mentioned, was the Colorado Springs Land Use Code update, and then El Paso County Master Plan. The county is currently, of course, creating a master plan, a land use plan for the entire county, and a variety of other processes. So Task 8 is really helping with facilitate any kind of communication or coordination with any of these processes. So that is a real brief overview of what we've been doing. And I will mention, I do have a list of some of those plans towards the page 2, middle of page 2 of the memo. And then lastly, I'll mention that we're trying to pursue a future grant that would continue this work that we've been doing, but take on some different tasks. And we're hoping that if all goes well, we will receive a new grant from the Office of Economic Adjustment, Department of Defense in March of next year that hopefully will extend either 18 or 20 months out, 18 to 24 months out, and get us either into late 2022 or early 2023. So with that, I know that was a lot of information to go through quickly, but are there any questions for me or any comments? All right, thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and take care.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the information.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I was slow on responding. I have one question. The interchange up there at 24 and Peterson, they've closed that north gate. Why are they going to continue? Why are they still going to put that interchange in?
Because their intent is to reopen it. They closed it because there were, as I understand it, and again, these are things that the details are not something that I'm privy to, but they plan to, in the future, they would like to reopen that gate with some additional security measures and a new configuration. So the plan is to do some rework of that gate area that would allow for it to be open and handle additional capacity. And so they had closed it down the interim. And my assumption is, even though I don't have the full details, is that there were some particular things they were concerned about with having it open full time. My understanding is there is some level of limited use on occasions, but the intent was to try and redo that gate in the near future. So the idea is that once they get that open, that there would be more traffic that would be coming in through that interchange, even though it's not being utilized very much in the moment. So I hope that answers the question.
It certainly does. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Great. Thanks again, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks for questions. Great. Okay. All right. I'll turn it over to Jessica for our action item, nominating committee.
Okay, thank you all very much. So as I brought to you not so very long ago, we do have a nominating committee to review citizen at-large applications. The secondary role of that committee is also to review the applications for our executive committee, the chair, first vice chair, and second vice chair of the CAC. It is that season in which our active executive committee gets the option to back off or say yes, they'd like to continue. And where we would also be able to fill in that gap when we lost our chair earlier this year, and Aubrey and John stepped up to take over the world with deep appreciation. So this is a two-part item. There's only one vote, but we have received 3 people who are interested in serving on the executive committee. So this is great, but one of those folks currently serves on the nominating committee. That means they can't be on the nominating committee. We have one person who is interested in the nominating committee who could replace them. So currently our 3 folks who have expressed interest in serving are John DeVoe, Miley Foster, and Carol Campbell. Is anybody else on the CAC interested in serving on the executive committee? Come on, guys, crickets. Okay. That, at this point, brings us to our current nominating committee. Our current nominating committee is Ms. Tamara Dipner, Ms. Miley Foster, and Ms. Shelley Roars. Because Miley is interested in serving on the executive committee, we do need to replace her on the nominating committee. Mr. Dave Betzler has very generously, the word was escaping me, forgive me, offered to serve on the nominating committee. Don't laugh at me, Carol, I see that. So I need the CAC to determine who they would like their nominating committee to be. We do have 2 people who are serving now, Tamara and Shelley, who could continue to serve as there is no conflict. And we do have a volunteer to fill the 3rd seat of Dave Betzler. So at that point, I'm going to be quiet and ask Tamara to speak because I see her hand.
So I have a quick question. My last day is the November meeting. Do we need to find a replacement for me as well, or would we have done the nominating process by then?
At your last meeting is when we'll do the voting based on the nominating committee suggestions. So, and as I said, the nominating committee will be filling the 1 citizen at large position that is going vacant, as well as proposing a slate for the executive committee. So yes, Tamara, you would still be able to serve successfully and well and appreciatedly.
Okay, sounds good.
I made up a word.
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute here. Okay, so it sounds like we have 2 items we need to vote on. Is that correct, Jessica?
Nope, there's just one. There's just the nominating committee. I gave you guys a bunch of background information on who the CAC, who has expressed an interest in serving on the executive committee, so who the nominating committee will be interviewing. But I need to know who that nominating committee is so that we prevent any form of conflict of interest.
I have a question. Did those 3 people get you to how many you need and that fills you up and you don't need other volunteers?
We have 3 seats on the executive committee and we have 3 volunteers. We also have 3 seats on the nominating committee, one of whom is requesting on the executive committee. So I need to know who my nominating committee is. That is what you all are proposing and voting on.
So do you need a motion? Not a movement.
I would need a motion saying that requesting that the nominating committee be made up of Ms. Tamara Dipner, Ms. Shelley Roars, and Mr. Dave Betzler.
So move. Sharon Brown. So move.
Thank you, Sharon.
Second, Ed Dills.
Thanks, Ed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all very much. I'm going to say an extra thank you to everyone who volunteered both for nominating and executive committee. I will look forward to harassing you very soon so that we can move forward on these.
Likewise, thank you to all who have volunteered, and I can attest that the harassment is minimal. So, all right. See, that concludes all of the agenda items before we get into member discussion and next meeting, that sort of thing. So we do need to talk about the sort of holiday meeting schedule. If I remember correctly, in the past, typically in November and December, we sort of consolidate into one meeting. It's often the first week of December to avoid, I think the last Wednesday of November is the day before Thanksgiving, so that would not be a great meeting date. So I'm proposing that we look to the first or second week in December as a combined meeting, and then we would not have a meeting the last week in December. Does that sound right, Jessica?
That is indeed what we've typically done, and part of that is to make sure we get a quorum. As we all know, that holiday season between Thanksgiving and the winter holidays, there are so many different reasons that people are out of town or busy.
Great. So any thoughts, questions about maybe that first Wednesday in December?
Question, Ed Dills.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Jessica, will that conflict with the first Wednesday PPRTA meeting that's at 1 o'clock?
It would. On the other hand, the PPRTA CAC is frequently done before 3. So that becomes
Jessica, they run till 4 usually.
That's what I get. Shame on me.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
think it'll look at the second week based on what I know.
I was gonna say, I'm on the CAC and I don't know that we finish before 3 o'clock often.
Okay. So the next
So-
Wednesday would be the 9th, but that is not in advance of the board meeting.
That one is the board meeting day, so it would not be possible for us to meet.
Right, so we need to meet before the 9th. Is that,
So would a Thursday the 3rd be possible?
Works for me.
Would you all like to have us do a doodle poll that sends out to find a majority and ensure we have a quorum, and offer probably the Tuesday and Thursday of December, the first week of December, to see what
Good
would
idea.
work best for the committee?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
That would be great.
That would be fine.
Good.
Good.
good? Okay. Great, we'll look forward to that then. And let's see, are there any member discussion items?
Anyone want to chime anything in?
Sounds like there is nothing that anybody wants to share. Okay. Lastly, any items for next meeting?
So I'm gonna chime in here. We do have a request for a update on the I-25 GAP project. I'm gonna ask them to come in our January meeting so that they can give us an update for where they are with all of their progress in 2020.
Oh.
We do also had a request to hear from the West Side Community Center. We checked in a little bit because they're not connected with PPACG. That is something that we're at this point in time not going to do. So I wanted to thank everyone who has brought forth a suggestion, and if anyone does have anything else they would like to hear about, as we had Mountain Metro come in today and talk about that.
And this is Rick Hoover. If whoever wanted to know about the West Side Center, Kono is in negotiations on that. If they wanted to contact Kono, they could find out what the situation is in the West Side Center.
That's outstanding, Rick. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me? You can? John?
We can hear you, John.
You know, one thing, I drove the Gap last Wednesday, morning out, back in the evening, late afternoon. I never had a problem. It went right through 60 miles an hour, no stops.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Any other
Always good to hear.
suggestions or thoughts for the next meeting?
If CDOT's going to be in on the Gap, I'd like to have them give us an update on the interchange at Research in Powers, please.
I will see if they can. I know they're different project managers. So I will put a request in to have CDOT come, but I don't know if they'll be able to come the same day, if that makes sense. And I see John Leosadas pop in, so John may be able to hook us up better.
Two different folks, but we can reach out to Shane, who could give you the update on the and research, and then the GAP's a different project team. That's a different folks. So have to be two separate presentations.
Thank you.
Maybe I can just tiny little information on that. My understanding is CDOT is going to be putting out procurement, at least for construction management services, for the Research Powers interchange construction in January 2021 is when they're starting to look at getting a team together to start the construction process. I don't know when the project will be constructed, but it looks like CDOT was waiting on funding to be available for the project to be constructed. So as far as I know, the fact that CDOT may be putting out a request for funds to help them inspect and observe the construction of that interchange starting in January might mean that maybe some construction will happen sometime next year. Am I making stuff up, John? You look like you're frowning.
Well, I'm actually frowning because it's very hard to hear you, and I only got like every other word. So what I sounded correct, but to be honest with you, I did not get enough to confirm. But it sounds like you said because of the economic downturn due to the COVID, that the project is going to be delayed. That is a true statement. But that being said, they're able to move forward with some of the phases. So, but as the actual timeline, we'd have to bring Shane in for that. But if that's what you said, I'm on board. But
It's close enough. It's close enough to Tracy. I don't know if anyone else can hear me, but yeah, my understanding is sometime in 2021, starting January 2021, they're going to start the process of some kind of process of constructing that interchange. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Tamara and John. Sounds like we have a couple items for our next meeting. Otherwise, go ahead and email the Jessicas if you have any other items you think need to be brought forth at that time. So I'm disappointed that we won't be able to have our normal holiday camaraderie at the next meeting, but we'll celebrate, and be together virtually again. And it looks like probably continue that through the winter, the way things are going. So I appreciate everybody's continued participation and willingness to go about this as best we can. Any other closing thoughts before we adjourn?
I just want to call out real quick, the very last Area Agency on Aging event of 2020 is November 9th, and it's Social Security 101. So if you know anybody who might be approaching the age of Social Security, it's a really great opportunity. It's a free class. They just register online. And like everything now, it's a webinar, so you can access it from anywhere.
Remember to go vote this next week. And Aubrey, thank you for your leadership.
Absolutely, my pleasure. You too, John.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn. Everybody take care. We'll see you next month.
Take care. Stay safe.
Thank
stay
you.
well.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.